want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know everybody's got a super busy schedule, even though a couple of us are kind of on vacation. First of all, I want to say thank you, Paige. Thank you, Michelle, for coming and joining us on Daughter Our Lives with Kim and Shay. I'm Kim.
Yes, thank
That's
you.
Shay.
I'm
Y'all
Shay.
know this a big thing for me, y'all.
I know. So
I done stepped out the
I
comfort zone.
I know one of the key factors here is like I'm like the common denominator. So I know all you ladies. So Paige, Matlock is in the corner. Paige is one of my very best friends. We've been friends since 5, 6 years now, I think. She lives in Fort Worth. Yeah, well, she lives in Fort Worth. Her and her husband. I met her through her husband and decided I liked her
That's
way
Paige
better than I
from
did
Fort
him.
Worth. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Uh-uh.
And you guys know Shay. So Shay, well, Paige, you don't, but Shay is one of my real good friends, one of my best friends, and we've been friends for, I think we've estimated 25 years or so now, 26 years or so. And then Michelle, who is over there struggling with her phone, is also one of my very good friends. But me and Michelle have also been friends for probably we've known each other for about the same amount of time because we all went to church together. So so when John, because I'm traveling, thank God I'm traveling. We were gonna just do something, and John suggested that we do a Zoom episode. So this is where this came about. And Shay came up with the topic kind of last minute when we were in the car today about autism. I don't personally have a lot to add to the conversation, which is why
I see it.
I see a shirt, which is why I invited. Initially, we talked. She was like, I was like, when she said to bring it up because one of Shay's sons has autism. So I was like, well, why don't we invite Michelle? Because I know, you have sons and daughters or kids that have it also. And then I was like, wait a minute, let's invite Paige. So I decided that this would be a good way to bring us all you guys all together to kind of discuss how this look for you. Again, I don't know. I don't have personal experience, although I know everybody's kids and that kind of stuff, but I don't have personal experience. So if you guys want to kind of start, who wants to? Anybody?
Well,
Paige, you start. We'll give them let's let Paige start.
Okay. Let me so Michelle, I've known her for about 30. I was like 17 when I met her.
She's just gonna go with forever on everything.
It was like 30 something forever. And of course you all see me with Kim every week. So yeah, I know she's one of my very best friends as well. I love these ladies to death. And now Miss Paige is my friend's friend, so now she's my friend. That's how that works.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So thank you guys for tuning in.
You know what?
I'm excited.
Side note, Shay, you know those pictures that hang in my hallway going into my bedroom? Paige painted those. She's an artist.
Oh, wow.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful, Paige. Those are beautiful art pieces.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you guys for joining us always every week. And now we're going to start with Miss Paige.
Well, all right. Well, just on the topic, I guess. I mean, that's kind of so open. I have two sons. I have.
Well, how about this?
So, yeah. Tell me where you want me to start.
Just tell us a little bit about you first, I guess. Tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and then maybe kind of into how you got, what made you, think about this.
Well,
realize.
So, like you said, I'm an artist. I'm a travel advisor. I've been in adult education space for, that's what I've done professionally for so many years with a pharmacy background. And so I've got two kids, and they're 10-year gap. And my youngest is mine that has autism. He'll be 21 this summer. And I think that I very first noticed it whenever he was probably an infant. Honestly, I noticed there was a lot of misdirection with his eyes. He didn't make a lot of eye contact. Any type of up close contact he would avoid. He would avoid that face-to-face confrontation. Like, so when you're feeding them like bottles and that type of thing. And then he was probably about 3 before he was speaking, which was very unusual for anyone in our family because we're chatty. All the people in our family who started talking early, and he just didn't seem to have a dang thing to say, which I was like, how can you not have something to say? And so I started thinking about it then and started doing some reading and felt like he was not necessarily deep on the spectrum in autism, but probably high because he wasn't avoiding other things. He was very engaging. He would play with other kids, but he just didn't speak forever, had a speech pathologist came in, considered deafness. And so just ran kind of the gambit of that. He's 21. So I think at the time I brought that up to his pediatrician and I said, I think that something's not right. And he said, well, you know, we can do all the testing, but there's really not a lot that they can do for kids right now. And so is it that you just want to know? And I said, well, I'd like to be armed with that just in case, right? Like, I'd like to know if that's what I'm dealing with. And I think it probably we sat on that for a while. He was probably in the 2nd grade. And we were struggling with a couple of teachers who wanted him to show math work, and he just couldn't. He couldn't understand how to convey what just kind of came to him innately. So he understood math, and I would go around and around with them. And one of the counselors said, have you considered testing him for autism? And I'm like, yeah, but no one seemed to be willing to do it. And nobody thought about it really but me. His dad didn't even think he had it. And we got him tested and evaluated then. And that started our journey, is probably really getting involved with it in the 2nd grade. Is kind of when we really started to find out that there were things that the school could do, you know, that there were options. So that kind of started our journey.
That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Shell.
Girl.
I'm gonna have a lot of questions when this is over. I got questions. I'm arming myself with them.
Shay and Kim, y'all know me. Y'all know from the beginning. But Miss Page, my journey started. Oh, okay. My name is Michelle. I'm the mother of 4. I had 3 girls and 1 boy. My boy was my baby, the last of the bunch. He was born a little early. His due date was June 27th. He came May 27th. And he had some issues at birth. He wasn't he stopped breathing a couple of times. And that caused him to have brain damage. So I was aware of that. He stayed in the hospital maybe 2 weeks after. They sent him home. So only thing that at the time he came home that I knew of was he was premature. And at 5 months, he started having asthma attacks. Well, asthma wasn't nothing unfamiliar in my family because it runs deep in there. So I was used to the asthma. So we was dealing with the asthma. When he turned 17 months, he started having seizures. So they said he was epilepsy. He wasn't talking or walking at this time. So we was dealing with that up to we had to deal with all that with the back and forth with the epilepsy. But once he started having epilepsy, the asthma left. He no longer had asthma, but they just had it on like alert. Okay. So we're dealing with the epilepsy, and at the time they was using the word mental retarded. At that time they were using that word. They don't use that word no more, but that was they were saying he was mental retarded. So okay, we dealing with that. When he got in the 1st grade, they tested him for autism. And when they called, they did an IPE, Is it IPE?
IEP, yeah, IEP.
Yeah. Okay.
IEP.
IEP. Okay, they called me in for that. They had an emergency meeting. They had to get permission to test him for that. So he was tested in the 5th grade, and the test came back positive that he was autistic. Okay, that's something new. Don't know what autism means. Never seen it. What you mean?
Yeah.
So
Right.
I had to get a lot of education on it. What is autism? Where it come from? And so it was with him. I say it was just a lot going on with the autism, but with him, most of it. Okay, he had autism, right? But the seizure was more like a factor in our family with him because he was having them quite often,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually passed away from a seizure. So that was him. Okay, so he passed away in 2014, 2019.
How old was little Joe?
He was
How old was
19.
he when he passed away? 19. Okay.
19.
I thought
And the doctor
so.
only
Okay.
gave him 3 years, but he passed away. The doctor said he wouldn't live past 3, but
Look,
he was 9. He was 19. Okay,
Running over.
let's fast forward a little bit. 2017, I have a grandson. So because I dealt with my son, I knew the signs of autism. So he too was born with some issues. He was born early. And I was like, this baby not doing what he's supposed to be doing at this time in his life. He's supposed to be doing this. So it's something going on with him. I believe he has autism. So the doctors was like, he too young for us to test him. And I said, I'm telling you, I know what I'm talking about. He have autism. So then they actually tested him last year and found out, yes,
Mhm.
Granny, you know what you're talking about. He has autism. So now I'm dealing with it with Emmanuel. He's 3. He's a bit different from Lil Joe. He's more active. He's nonverbal. He's still not verbal, but he got the eye thing where his eyes, he's not focused, and he's not uh I don't know if they trying to see if he have any kind of vision delay, which I don't think he does, but so autism has been in my life.
At least they're looking.
Is more hands on now than it was with Lil Joe, because medicine changes all the time. So
Yeah.
I'm getting more knowledge and more understanding and more help with it than I did with Lil Joe. I understand a lot more because I understand. So now he's with this. He's nonverbal. Like I said, he don't talk. He makes a lot of noise. And while I'm dealing with my grandbaby with autism, I goes and get a bus attendant job with special need kids.
Ooh.
So
You on the
I
bus
have
with Tristan. Like you on the bus with one of my kids.
Right.
so I deals with autistic kids 7 days a week, like 35 of them, not including my little baby. 35. So I see all kinds of different forms of autism because it's different levels.
Right.
It's a
So
spectrum
I
for
see
a
all
reason.
kinds of
Yeah.
forms. I see some because one little boy was talking, say, "How you talking when you got autism?" So I'm like, okay, so it's different. It's different stages.
Like, let me do a little more research.
Yeah, I think because how
Yes, it's
you
a
talking?
spectrum. And that's why they call it a spectrum.
Uh-huh.
Okay, see, I didn't know that at the beginning. I'm like, autistic kids can't talk. Why is you talking? Why are you telling? Why are you saying Miss Michelle? What's up there? My baby can't talk.
Right.
But it's been some challenges. So that's why I'm team autism. I'm team epilepsy. I'm team special need. Anything got to deal with it, I'm with it.
Right.
He okay, so
That's good.
along with the autism, he also is epilepsy. he started having
Oh, he has
seizures.
epilepsy as well?
Yes, he started having seizures last May. It haven't been a year, but they're under control with meds. So thank you, Lord, he
Good.
haven't had now since August.
Good.
So that's what I'm dealing with. So it's a task.
Shay?
It's a lot. It's a lot of patience.
So I'm Shay again, everybody. I have 3 biological children. And I think with me, my middle son is the one that was diagnosed with autism. I knew really early on that there was something different. I have my oldest daughter who was just like bam, 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 like talking, walking, potty train, everything really early. And then I turned 34, get remarried, and start all over. So I have him, and I just noticed that he liked to be by himself. And because I was in early childhood,
Still do.
yeah, he still does. I was in early childhood, and I studied the development and things for like over 20 years. So because I noticed it, I did not want to be one of the parents that I had to talk to all the time that was in denial about everything. I get it. Nobody wants anything wrong with their babies, but I didn't want to do that to him. So I think by the time he was 3, I had ECI come out and test him. But because he was so young, they were like, oh, just give it a little more time and see what happens.
Yeah.
I already know it's going to happen because I see this all the time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it looked like this thing's going to get ready to cut off. I don't know what's going on. But I already knew what was going to kind of happen. So by the time he got in kindergarten, he was at a private school. And the teacher at the private school, at this time I was the assistant director. She would tell, like, he's just being lazy. He can't get this, and don't let him go to his nana's house because he don't want to do the work. But I was like, I don't feel like it's that he doesn't want to do that. He literally doesn't get it. Because I would get frustrated before I really knew, like, what you mean you can't write this? Like, he just couldn't put things on paper. If you verbally talk to him, he could give it to you. But
that sounds like what Paige was saying too.
Just
with the math thing.
Exactly. You couldn't give him paper and be like, I want you to write this down on here and I want you to put these numbers. And you couldn't have a lot of stuff on a bunch of boards, and it was just a lot for him. And so because of the way she treated him, it became a lot for me. Because I'm like, this is not that he just doesn't want to do it. And at this time, he could talk, but he walked slow, he potty trained slow. He didn't talk to anybody but his family. Like, he was not doing a lot of talking. He didn't want a lot of people touching him a lot. He's still kind of like that right now. He he's okay if he wants to give you affection, but you just walking up to him, hugging and like, he's like, okay, please don't do that. But so I remember getting really upset, and I told my boss, this isn't going to work for me. Because I think the way she's treating him is just not okay. And I don't want to become this angry mom, because that's where I'm at. Like, I understand that you want him to do this stuff, but he doesn't. And I learned, because I'm at home working with him, he literally does not get this. So when he started, I took them out when Elijah, my baby boy, got out of kindergarten. So he went through 1st and 2nd grade there. I literally felt like he was just there. He got nothing. I'm not even, as amazing as the school was, because they did not know how to work with children with his issues. I feel like he was there. We went to the regular school. No, they tested him his 2nd grade year. They finally said, bring him to the elementary school that he's zoned to. We tested him. They still didn't test him. They didn't diagnose him with autism at the time. At that time, they diagnosed him with ADD. He had anxiety pretty bad. and it was one other thing, but it still wasn't autism. So we go see the psychiatrist. Y'all know how that whole thing worked. Psychiatrist, psychologist, and let me put him on medicine. Let me do this, that. It was just a lot of that. And then I was like, he has no filter, first off. And because he's literally going to say what he's thinking. And so he would get in trouble a lot for that. Then when he was in elementary, I would be so emotional. I would have to call Michelle. I was like, he's always running out. He was really fixated on if this is the bathroom I'm used to going to, I don't want to go to another bathroom. This is the bathroom. I want to stand up and work. I want to play with this thing that's on my desk. I want to chew on this straw. It was just always something, and the teachers were calling, and it was just a lot. And then one day they was like, he ran out the school. We had to catch him, and I was like, this is too much.
I've been there.
This is way too much.
My kid don't even have autism, and I got some of these problems.
So it was just a lot. I remember being so emotional when he was in elementary, because I was like, then you had teachers like, he needs to sit down like everybody else in the class. He needs to be learning how to. So now at this point, I'm like, if he was like everybody else in the class, he would not have a SSI check coming every month. He would not be having IEP meetings. He would not, like, why does he have in-class support if he's like every other child? Stop trying to make him like somebody else and teach him where he is. So that's my journey.
So from the aspect of the school system, I hear a thread, right? It's like all of this was just, at first it's just like your kid is kind of bad. Your kid is bad. It's not us, it's your kid is bad. So do you think, because I know there's a difference. I know this, Shell, you said that like with little Joe, it's so much different now that you're dealing with it with your grandson, because people are more aware of it. Yeah. And I know that in Fort Worth, your son, Paige, was going to a specific school, right? That specialized.
Well, we did a couple things. So we obviously had the IEPs in place. And my situation is very similar, yet very different, because Drew didn't have like what she's saying, like with the epilepsy and things like that. He has Marfan, which is something different, which is really kind of not necessarily attached to the autism, but he was, I found a school temporarily that dealt solely with kids with autism, thinking that might be my answer. And that really wasn't fully the answer either. And I think, this is just me, I pulled him back. It's hard for me because you want your kid to be mainstream, yes, but it's also a detriment in another way, because they really do, like we were just saying with this spectrum, every one of those kids has some common thread, but they're still so different, that I try to be a little empathetic to teachers as well, because in a mainstream room, there's no way they can deal with those situations. And what I find, and y'all may have also, is that they can say that they've trained these teachers as best they can, but there's no way to train them to be an educator for a mainstream child and also a child with autism. Because just like Shay was saying with not being able to put things on paper, I was actually having a conversation earlier today with someone, and I was trying to explain that when Andrew would do his work, he could get it on paper, but then he didn't even feel the need to turn it in. So Drew's extremely high functioning, and we would have conversations, and he was like, well, I did it. I did what they asked me to do. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to turn that into them so they can see that you did it. And he's like, but I did it. But I did what they asked me to do. Right. I said, they're also asking you to turn it in. And he's like, I already know how to do this. I don't need to prove to them I know how to do this. That's and so again, funny. With math, he would get it, but he could not verbalize or explain, like, how did you get this answer? He could not methodically say, well, I took 2 + 2 and I added that and got 4. then I divided it by 3 and I got this decimal. He couldn't tell you that. His brain just did it, and he could not understand
the work. Yes.
Yeah, through the work. Yeah, he could not understand that process. So to put that all down on paper, I had so many disagreements and arguments with teachers. And they're like, well, we have to, it's kind of still going back to kind of that testing mentality. Well, we have to be able to prove he did the work. Well, so there has to be some reform, which even with Drew being 21 now, schools still aren't there because they're just not equipped. They need something more specialized where people can understand and like do the verbal testing or meet them where they're at. And that's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because again, my son versus Michelle, like they're not going to do the same thing. They don't need the same.
Yeah.
I remember when little Joe, he was in elementary. This was after he was diagnosed with autism. They would send him home every week, at least 3 or 4 times a week. They would call and say, you got to come get him, because they didn't deal with him. And I'm like, so he's at home more than he's at school. Now, if I actually just keep him home, then y'all will be having the truancy officers at my door when he's supposed to be at school.
Right.
So they came up with this idea. No, what happened was, because at that time I didn't have transportation, so my mother-in-law would have to, every time they would call, she would have to go pick him up.
She'd have to go get him.
She would have to go get him. So the last time she went, she brought him home. She went back to the school. She was like, look, y'all gonna have to do something. He's supposed to be at school. I'm not gonna come up here now.
So needless to say, we have technical difficulties, and we did not subscribe to the professional version of Zoom and did not realize that Zoom was going to cut us off. So we got 45 minutes nope, not even 45 minutes now, 30 minutes to wrap this up.
All right.
So let me know I didn't use my Zoom.
Right.
I wish, that's why I was trying to use Teams, because I know Teams there's no time.
Okay, Shell, we ended up with you talking
learning
about,
curve.
Them at school, sending him
home. Yeah. They were sending him home a lot. So what they ended up, after my mother-in-law went up there and blew their hair back, they ended up sending him, we was in Aldine school district. So they ended up sending him to a school that specialized with autism, epilepsy, and that specialized with those type of kids. It's called Lane. So while he was there 3 weeks. They actually hired somebody because they said he wasn't old enough to be there, but they would send him over there. They hired somebody to work specifically with him at his home school.
That's good.
So they hired this woman named Miss Fisher. So once Miss Fisher was hired and Miss Fisher was trained, they brought him back to his home school. Now, when Miss Fisher started working with him, I seen a big difference. I seen he started saying little words, like he could say hello, well, bye, who is it? He couldn't hold a sentence, but I can see a difference. And I would know when, like, if Miss Fisher had to be out on a certain day, if little Joe came home and then go straight to sleep, I say Miss Fisher wasn't at school today. And it'd be like she wasn't there because she wore him out, which I loved it. So and then she's supposed to have followed him through his whole school year. I mean, the whole term. They end up firing her because they said she wasn't following the educational guidelines. And me and my husband was like, she getting the job done. We didn't care.
Well, I find that was a problem, is that the educational guidelines get in the way because these kids aren't a cookie cutter situation. So, the powers that be that say they know so much about education, they want to create some kind of box for each of these kids to fit in, and they don't fit in the same boxes.
Right.
And that
so
just doesn't work.
Is your son, did he further his education or anything like that?
You know, no. He's 21 and he got out of school. And so again, you know, being on the spectrum, it all looks so different. If you were to meet Drew, you would probably know if you know, are familiar with autism, but some people don't recognize it with Drew right away because he's very social, very talkative. He like, hi, I'm Drew.
Very, very social.
He's very super social. So he breaks that mold with a lot of people. So it was a struggle bus getting him out of school. I mean, and we did it. And he's very smart, but again, how he applies that is, you know, a whole nother thing. So we're at the point now where he doesn't see the value of college. He doesn't see the value in that. Hopefully, as he gets a little bit, you know, older and matures some more, because that's also the issue, is their emotional maturity is not there.
Yeah.
And some kids with autism can go straight into college and they excel at that. And some kids just can't see the purpose and that type of thing. That's Drew. Drew falls in that category. So he got out and started working, but then he found that there were, because, you know, I'm in this with him, that there were challenges in the workplace, right? Because again, that don't touch me. Somebody had like touched his person. He swatted at him and they reported him for abuse, right? And if you know Drew, like there is nothing confrontational about the child. And I'm very open to who my kid is, right? So it's not just a defensive thing. So we've run into real struggles with him working, even because that awkwardness, that funky little thing that's there, people don't really understand it. And it's, so we're there. That's where we're at. That's kind of the place that we're at. But you said something earlier about just it being difficult and crying and things like that. And I had read something once that said that parents of autistic children have like low level PTSD, like soldiers, people in the military go through. And I always hasten to say that it's like battle, because I don't ever want to diminish somebody putting their life on the line, because it's not that in that same way. But I don't think a lot of people realize that the struggle for the whole family, it really is. It is.
It's a lot.
It's a thing. It's a real thing. And so people will dismiss it, or people will see Drew as high functioning, and they'll just think our day is our day. You know, it's a normal thing. And whenever I tell somebody, hey, I'm late today because my kid had a meltdown. Well, he doesn't have a meltdown all the time, but when he does, he needs someone to help him through that, because he has a hard time regulating once his emotions spiral, how to deal with that, you know. And that's what we deal with them in school and stuff too. And people not dealing with it, or dealing with autism that looks different, they don't understand. And it's just, the supports aren't there yet for parents, even as much as we know. The supports aren't there for parents. The networks aren't good. I ran into really trying to get Drew other friends with autism. I joined parenting networks with moms with autism. And I would say, hey, let's get our kids together. They have common likes. You know, of course, they like Legos and they like video games. And they'd be like, oh, well, my kid doesn't leave the house. So there were always struggles, because it was really hard for Drew to find kids with autism that looked like his, that wanted to go do stuff and wanted to get out. And it's frustrating. And it is heartbreaking, because you realize that your kid is not having that same experience that other children are having, that he doesn't express his emotions all the time. But when he does, they're like tragic, that like the things going on in his head.
They're big. They're big. That's the thing. They're big emotions.
They can be suicidal even, but they're not expressing that, because there is a loneliness that they have, because they don't know how to do that same thing everybody else does. They don't know how to make those same connections. So it just, as a parent, you just hurt for them, because you know that they're hurting even when they don't say they are. And you see it more than you would see in a neurotypical child that you have. They would be more apt to say, hey, well, I'm mad, or I'm depressed, or I'm sad, or whatever, where this child's just gonna lock it down, and then it'll show up in a meltdown, or it'll show up in, you know, an odd time that they feel like expressing, and or maybe they don't ever express it, and it's tough.
And I think having a high function child with autism, even with the schools, they're just like, he can get this much help because he know how to go to the bathroom, he know how to take care of himself, he knows how to walk himself, he knows. But just because he knows those things does not mean that he does not need the help that he needs. And I think that was one of the really frustrating things in elementary and first part of junior high. Now he'll be 17 in August. And Trey, most definitely, you were talking about maturity. Trey still sucks his thumb. Trey still carries a blanket at home.
Yeah.
Like, I don't let him go out the house with it, because I'm like, sir, we're not gonna do that. But
we are not taking it outside.
But it's comfort. And if he loses this blanket, I think the entire world has ended.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. So
Drew's moved away from those. He had those a lot when he was younger. And it was funny, one of you were talking about like chewing on things. Oral fixations were, oh my gosh, what's in your mouth? What's in your mouth? It'd always be a Lego or a straw or a lid or something. I would find little things, little pieces of plastic just chewed up, that nervous energy, just always trying to get, you know, that out. And there's just, again, like you said, there's so many things, and the school does not have the manpower or the education, quite honestly, because, you know, you and I live with it every day, and we struggle with it. You know, we've had to learn that child and learn their triggers and learn the things that they can and can't do, and wrap your head around that. Just going to the store is overwhelming because there's just so much stuff, so many noises, so many sounds, so many textures, all the things that are going on. And if it took you or me 21 years, 17 years to understand your kid, how can they do that in a semester? There is no way. And dealing with your kid, and then my kid, and then her kid.
And it's always usually, although he was in mainstream, I don't know, they tried to put him not, and he was like, there's nothing wrong with me, I don't belong in here, I don't want to be in this class. You know, it was just a lot of that. And then to have him in mainstream, and I'm not saying the teachers don't believe that they can do this. Right. Some of them really believe they can. I think they get overwhelmed. I've had where teachers cry because they have like 5 kids with these same issues, but then they have like 15 that they can't really teach because of these students. If you only have one in-class support for all these kids, that I can only imagine that is
right. And
so,
they don't
go ahead.
They don't put the middle schools and the high schools. They're not in a small setting.
No, they're actually what they do is they put them in what they call, and I know this just from with my own boys who have IEPs, they want to put them in the least restrictive environment. So basically, if they can have all of their normal functions, so you can go to the bathroom by yourself, you can feed yourself, you can do all those kind of things, they are going to put you in a class, in what they consider an all-inclusive class, and they will give them in-class support. But that in-class support person is typically in-class support for, like you guys were saying, multiple children who have these autism or other issues, behavioral issues. Like my boys have ADHD and some emotional stuff and some other different things. But they also have in-class support. So now you have your kid and my kid and Johnny over here, who all need the same in-class support, and all of them have different behavior.
Or they have different in-class supports.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
And
is
then
they
for
have different
kids,
in-class supports.
and then what happens is the kids who are all that movement and all of that, because you got all these people moving around, all this in-class support is moving around, and all the kids are moving around, and the teachers are trying to talk, and it's just adding to
the frustration and the distraction.
the frustrations that they feel.
Yeah.
So it doesn't change.
Well,
now, one thing I know with me, again,
no, go ahead.
Again, my boys don't have autism, but they have special needs, right? So I actually found and work with an IEP specialist. So she specializes in IEPs.
Mm-hmm.
And because she was able to come in and help me in these arts, because I know all of you have probably had art,
Mm-hmm.
right? They will last 30 minutes. They give you 30 minutes. That's what you have. And you are sitting in there, and half of the language you do not understand. And Sarah Leonard is the lady who helped me, and we're actually going to have her on one of the podcasts. We had an art for one of my boys, my youngest son, that lasted an hour and 30 minutes. Because she came in there and she was like, no, you haven't tested him for this. Because they asked me, one of the questions they asked me, well, how's his language? And again, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys. You go into these settings and they ask, how's his language? And I'm like, he can talk? What do you mean? What do you mean, how's his language? Like,
with
he
me,
can talk, he
with me, I'll be
responds.
like,
you know,
with me, I'll be like, well, you tell me.
Right.
You know,
but the thing
Well,
is, we don't understand the
language.
verbiage.
Yeah.
We don't understand the verbiage. So when they're saying those things, she's talking about his cognitive language. She's talking about all these other things that I still don't understand. So Sarah is like, oh, well, his such and such, and his response times are such and such and such and so on. So, and then his teacher is like, yeah, I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
Well, I would have said it was okay. You would have said mom said it was okay. You would have then not gotten him the additional services. So we don't understand the verbiage. So when we go into these meetings at these schools, we don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Even when we think we do, we don't.
Right.
Well, that's so funny that you said that, Kim, because you know Drew, and I am that mom that whenever the school ever called, I was always like, what did they do? I never thought my kids were perfect. I love my kids, and I will defend them to the death when appropriate. Yeah. But I know that sometimes that's not appropriate. They are due for their own comeuppance. But it was funny because Drew is smart. He's very smart. And we would get into an ARD and they would be like, well, we're going to reduce his classwork and we're going to reduce this and we're going to reduce that. And I'd be like, hold up. He can do that. Who's telling you he can't do that? And it was Drew. Drew would be like, I don't want to do that. He was smart enough to know that they would make concessions for him if he would just whine about it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, well, and he does have like dysgraphia. He writes like a serial killer. Yes.
One of my boys has that. He was just diagnosed.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. That must be what Trey has.
Yeah. They just diagnosed one of the boys with that and dyslexia. I was super excited.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean,
Tarisha is
like a maniac.
Oh, Tarisha's dyslexia?
Yeah, she dyslexia. And we just found out during her pregnancy that she has a trach of epilepsy.
Really? Oh, that's right. Because when they were trying to figure out the baby and all that stuff.
Yeah, but she was diagnosed with dyslexia. And this boy is opening his door. Yeah.
Girl. Not my kids this time. Not my kids.
This boy is
with my kids. It's not my kids this time, y'all. Not my kids.
But yeah, she was diagnosed with dyslexia and brain damage. Brain damage from birth, but then when she got in school, that's what they said, she was dyslexia. So she see things, it's backwards.
Yeah, it's a couple of different, things too. But dyslexia is a whole, it's a whole, but again, it kind of goes with you got the kids with the dyslexia and the all these other things, and they're all in one class.
Yeah.
And again, you don't want your kids separated you don't want them separated because you don't want to have that stigma of them being in the sped classes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But you also, as you go through this journey, you realize that them being in the mainstream classes may not be the best thing. But then you also know that putting them in a room with just children with other issues is not the best thing.
Well, exactly.
So there's
got to be a place and a time where parents and educators all come together and they have to create a new model for all kids. Yeah. Because
absolutely,
because I recognize, you know, that if I were in class with a Drew, for instance, causing a disruption or getting all this special attention whenever my goal is to get a scholarship to college, and or say I was the valedictorian, that where does their needs? I mean, they still have their needs that come into play, and their needs are getting truncated because now, you know, we've got such this hyper focus on all the kids with the special needs. So it would be great to look at a model that kind of broke out the dysgraphia during a certain part of the day, like, and not even, I don't want to even say like fix the dysgraphia, or maybe you could work on that, but what tools do we use to compensate for that, you know, and have those kids get those skills and get the other kids the skills with verbal and get, you know, because Drew went to speech, but speech wasn't like what when you and I think of speech from when we were in class or school, we think of kids that weren't speaking well, right? That they literally just weren't speaking well. Drew's was focusing on conversation. Like, he had to sit and talk about a topic that was not his topic of choice. And he had to do that like in increasing time frames, because for him with his autism, he would get hyper fixated on his stuff. So speech doesn't even look like what we think, you know, speech is. But again, one
of my boys is in speech.
Yeah.
And they all talk that.
Well, right. It has nothing to do with whether they can speak. It's how they speak.
But like you said, though, it's kind of
conversations and So
we don't understand those we don't understand the verbiage.
There's got to be a
speech. He has speech at home and he have it at school. So the private speech therapist and the one at school, they had to come together so they could be on the same page. Now, I noticed since he's been having speech, he do a lot of bye, 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 bye. He start that like he's trying to say words. So I'm thinking like, okay, it's working. But then I'm like,
it's probably just going to be slow.
Is he getting anything? That's what I'm like, is he think?
Well, but to your point, just like what you're saying, speech for your child looks different than what speech for my child looks like. They're both on the spectrum. And that's the problem, is that they cannot say, hey, we're sending Drew and your son to speech and then get the same thing. It's got a tailored plan to each child because the need is so different. A nonverbal autism is not different. The same as a high functioning autism, where they will talk your ear off. And now you've got to rein all that in to, hey, let's focus. So
yes, looks like it. Like you got Drew, who talks way too much, and Shay has Trey over there that will hide from a conversation by any means necessary. He does not want to talk to you. And Shell, you just starting this journey all over again.
All over again. And I'm scared. I just be
But you know what? The good part is that there are, even though the systems need to be, you know, reviewed, and we need at least there's more help and there's better awareness. So I think that the outlook
it's a lot
manual will be better.
It's a lot different. But I'm just scared. I be like, Lord. Like you said, I'm starting all over. Lil Joe was 19. I mean, he was 19, and then here we go 3-4 years later.
Yeah. And I have a sister who has a daughter. She had a late pregnancy and ended up having a child that has Down syndrome and also autism. And I heard, I think you mentioned that you have your son on SSI, and that's something I never did with Drew. And the reason I didn't do it, and maybe I need to have a sidebar conversation with you, is because Drew was so high functioning that if he knew he had some money coming in, he would never get a job. Like, oh, there's money? All right, no worries. I'm good. But honestly, like I talked and have frank conversations with Drew all the time about, I'm not going to be here in your life forever. I need you to learn to regulate and motivate in this world, because there's going to be a day I can't be here to walk you through these uncomfortable situations. And what are you going to do? I said, I worry about you because I need to make sure that you are financially able to support yourself in the instant something happens to me.
Right.
Because it will happen to me, and he will be on his own. So
Yeah.
I worry a lot about him. He's high functioning.
He can get SSI and work.
Yeah, but I'm telling you,
we'll connect y'all, and y'all will have a sidebar conversation. Y'all have a sidebar conversation. Drew was like, I ain't working. I got a check.
I ain't working because I got a check. I would have to like not let him know that was coming in, because he'd be like, we're covered. And I'd be like, no, sir.
Trey actually, he gets his check, but they allot him 20 hours
to work.
20 hours a week to work.
Well, and that's the thing. Drew is capable of much more than that. So, fine line. So, yeah, I'll have it off a side conversation.
We'll have a conversation.
But it's, you worry about them. Like, as a parent, you have to kind of think, like, when you're not here, who is going to be the caretaker of these kids? And and who's going to help them navigate all of this stuff? And not everybody, like my sister was very savvy, and she has a trust for her kids. So that's like a whole nother part of this puzzle, is like, what happens to them as adults?
Right.
Some of them can fully function. Some of them still need someone in their life to help them regulate.
Like, I have him a part of this Workforce Solution goes to the school, and they set him up on this program where they actually help him learn how to work.
Yeah.
And they'll teach him how to be out on his own. And he is determined that when he's 18, he's moving. I told Kim, Michelle, if
you say he's 18, he's moving?
He's moving. I told him he only getting a microwave because he'd be about to burn your house down. So he's gonna move. He's only going to microwave. Like, you're
Where is he going? Where is he going?
I don't know. But he is
nowhere.
When I turn 18, I'm moving. I'm getting my own things, my own stuff. And I'm
tell Tyrese to go sit down somewhere.
But like, he still struggles with like the basic stuff, which sometimes I find myself saying, come on, Trey, like, what are you doing? Like, I still have to be like, son, like, bathe this way. Make sure you're doing this. And like earlier, like, brush your teeth. Like, right. What are you doing? Why are you brushing your teeth in 2 seconds? Like, brush your teeth correctly. So it's those little things that I still have to continue to.
A lot of times I have to catch myself with Tyresha, because I be like, girl, you should know this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, why is you? But then I have to think, like, they have their own way of doing things.
Right. Like earlier, he had stopped up the toilet. I was on the phone with Kim. And Elijah was like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's irritating me. I have to use the bathroom. I walk in the bathroom. He has the plunger, but he's just doing this. I'm like, it's not even in the hole. Put the plunger in the hole. He was like, Mom, I know what I'm doing.
What?
Because it's
hygiene.
Hygiene is my biggest thing.
Hygiene is unbelievably. I mean, when you tell another parent who does not have a child on the spectrum that at 21 you're still reminding your child to use soap in the shower, and that you can't just get in there and get wet, and like, have you brushed your teeth, and they look at you and say yes, and you go, there is absolutely no way. If you did, you just would have this, and like, your teeth still have sweaters on them. Like, seriously, you have got to do. And at 21, you would think that conversation would be over. And it is literally still a daily conversation. Did you put on deodorant? Did you brush your teeth? When you were in the shower for 45 minutes, did you use soap at any point?
And because he's so particular about water on his face. So then he's like, It's it's all over my face. I can't wash my hair. You have to wash my hair. So Trey, did you put deodorant on? I said, you have to put it from here to here. Oh, mama, that's too much. Just put it right here. I don't like the feeling of it under. I'm like, oh my God.
I went through a phase with Drew and I thought it would help. But I would put like washable marker on his arm and on his leg.
So make
and I would say, you've got to scrub that off. I said, you got to use enough soap to scrub that off. You know, and because again, every time I mean, again, we're about to be 21 this summer and it's still a struggle. But so what's funny about that kind of stuff is that you struggle with that. But this, I think for Drew's 19th birthday, he took a solo vacation out here to Florida from Texas and did absolutely fine on his own. I cannot tell you if he washed all those days, but I will tell you he survived.
He probably didn't brush his teeth all that time.
He had a good time and he survived.
He's by himself? Oh, wow.
Yeah, by himself. He got an Uber.
Oh, wow.
He would walk to restaurants.
Were you nervous? Like, were you worried?
I was, but he talked to me all the time and stuff like. But so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Is like that. You know, all these kids look so different. There's so much he's capable of, but then I still have to remind him to brush his teeth.
So this little Zoom thing is going to be over in a couple of minutes. So
he's wily.
So Kim,
maybe we could.
Since we've been kind of on it, Kim, the last couple of minutes, you have anything?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Paige. And I know this was kind of wonky because we had some Zoom issues. Next time we'll use Paige's Zoom. But maybe I think I want to do some research and then maybe we can revisit the topic and just talk about some of the things that maybe could change, you know, if it was us choosing the perfect world or that kind of thing. So I'll come up with some stuff and I'll shoot out some emails and maybe we can meet again. Maybe we can have this next one at Paige's pool when she finishes. Anybody ready to go to Fort Worth?
Oh, let's go, Paige.
Let's do it.
That will be nice.
We could have it at the pool. She has a beautiful saltwater pool. Beautiful.
And I can learn how to hold this camera.
Yes, we're gonna have to have a specific.
You did a lot today.
A specific look. I'm in and out of the camera. I'm in and out. I'm like, oh, I want to snack. And Michelle is just everywhere. And I tried to tell her before you got back on the phone too, and she is having the hardest time. So yes, we're gonna do a little schedule, a little plan.
The Lee Manuel was trying to break in my room, so I'm trying to keep him.
So thank everybody. Thank everybody for
we're gonna
paying attention.
Yeah, it's gonna kick us out.
Like, share. We love you guys, Michelle, Paige. Thank you so much, Kim.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Look, now we got to figure out how to leave.
Right.